Okay, so welcome to our first podcast. Ravi and I haven't done this before, but here we are.
Yes, we're going to see how this goes. Well, you've been going on at me for ages to do this, and I've been pretty much resistant, mainly because I'm scared what I'll say and it might get me into trouble. So you're going to have to uh, sort of like control that and protect myself from myself, really.
There's always that danger, but listen,
But
it
what
could
what
be
what did
me.
we want to? What was the whole point of this, Amber? What was the whole point of this talk, this
Well,
pod?
I think there's so many sort of advancements and changes happening all the time. I think obviously I'm coming at it from a different. I'm the customer, if you like. I mean, obviously I've been a beauty journalist for a long time, so I'm very, very invested and interested in all these topics. But also as a consumer, as someone who wants to know how these treatments are going to work, I think almost the better the industry becomes, the harder it is for a consumer to kind of decipher what there is out there, what's available, how things work, and how to navigate it. So I think it would be nice to give some clarity from that, sort of from a customer perspective.
From my perspective, I'd like to just almost like explain stuff in a completely non-promotional, non-salesy, as factual as I can and be. Really, I mean, I do not know everything about aesthetics. I do not know everything about medicine, but I've been around for long enough to know trends and history and what's good and what's bad and what can be achieved. Also from patients, what types of patients I see, what types of expectations they have, and one of the most frequent questions I get asked actually, Amber, is how do I know who to choose?
Mm. Yeah, that's a big. I mean, as a beauty journalist, that's a question I've had for 30 years, really. Um, and then that's the people who do ask, and then the people that don't ask enough questions come to me and say, I didn't make the right decision. What do I do now? So it's really important to address that, actually, because I think that's everyone's starting point, and it's really, really important to go to the right person.
I mean, it's all too easy to, you could go on your social media and you're bombarded by trends. You're bombarded by treatments that may be effective, may not. I mean, the biggest craze that I can think of recently, which was completely ineffective and dangerous, was the lemon bottle craze. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry went on a half-day course to learn how to inject some acid into people's chins and fatty areas, hoping that they would get results equivalent to liposuction. This was a completely unregulated product. It was not a medicine.
Wow.
These training courses were not registered or regulated or official or sanctioned, and it was all because the manufacturer of lemon bottle whatever did a very good social media campaign, and it trended and
Well,
went viral, and
we know
everyone
how
wanted
quickly
it.
these things take off, right? It can literally be one, from 1 minute to the next, something can go viral and then everyone's jumped on it and no one's really sort of doing any research around it to ask if it actually works or not. And I don't think beauty industry is any different to fashion now, and you mentioned the word trends. I think that is the case. There are trends, and I think beauty journalists are probably guilty of it. We jump on the back of them because we want to write about the latest, greatest. But I think what our podcast really, the service it could provide, is to give some clarity around those trends and to actually say, right, okay, do they work? Who are they going to work for? Because not everything works for everyone, as we know. And how do you approach these so-called beauty trends or beauty, the new latest, greatest?
But there's also a massive distinction between beauty and aesthetic medicine. Okay. And, you know, medicine doesn't trend. Skin health doesn't trend. Okay. Disease doesn't trend. Sun damage doesn't trend. Aging doesn't trend. These are conditions that your body experiences, more, some more than others, and they require medical treatments. The fact that they help you look better is the aesthetic medical part of it. Now, beauty is something which trends. So what really concerns me is when I see clinicians or And I use that in a very loose sense now of the word, because almost anyone can call themselves an advanced aesthetic practitioner, having been on a 2-day course, and they call themselves clinicians. And a clinician for me is someone who's worked in patient care, and has a core belief in doing what's best for patients, for people and their health, and improving their health. And it's not about the pound, the profit, the business.
Mm.
That's the core belief. The clinician is there for caring. Um, so aesthetic medicine doesn't trend at all. And when I see these clinicians jump on the bandwagon, as many did and still do, it's like, it is marketing at the end of the day. And I get that,
Yeah.
we're a private industry, it's a private sector. It's a business as well. But we still, and that's the thing I think people need to look for when they are searching is, because they're bombarded on social media first, then dig deep into what is that clinic, what's their reputation. Now, online reputation is a guide, but that is heavily uh, influenced by a marketing team as well. Many practices incentivize positive reviews, and incentivize people who write negative reviews. I know of clinics that if they get a negative review, they will bend over backwards to that patient or customer to take that review down and probably sell their soul to get them to do it.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
know that. That's actually quite scary. I didn't know you could remove negative comments. So that's an eye opener and very
yeah.
worrying.
So my belief is if a clinic has, let's say, 1,000 reviews and they're all 5-star, nah, life
Mm.
doesn't work that way. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Anything above four is a good practice. 4.5, 4.6, 4.7 is a better practice. There will be some negative reviews on there because not everybody is happy with outcomes. Interpersonal skill relationships that don't work, communication skills don't work. Sometimes patients have to be told, no, what you've come in for is not right for you. It's not suitable for you. They are the most common people to write a negative review because they felt that they were turned away and thrown out the door when they haven't been. They've just been, perhaps it wasn't managed in the best way, because it's very hard saying no to people. But sometimes you try and tell someone that they need psychological evaluation when they're expecting you to treat this mysterious wrinkle that's only visible in the light in their bathroom, but nowhere else in the planet.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course, yeah. And actually, it's the clinics that are, telling you the truth and being honest that actually have the most credibility. But yeah, that one might not be reflected in the rating online. So yeah, it is a bit of a minefield, isn't it? But going back to the qualifications and what people should have, because again, I've been writing about beauty for decades, and I still find it hard to decipher who actually is qualified at doing what. But because of the labels people give themselves, and they're not really regulated.
So first of all, for a doctor, you can check that they're registered in the UK on the GMC website, the General Medical Council website. Any good doctor should have their GMC number, registration number, visible on their website, or you can ask for it if you contact their office. And then you can see, you go onto the GMC website and you can search for the list of registered practitioners, and it's called the GMC Register, and you can find out whether that doctor, first of all, has a license to practice in the UK. That's the bare minimum. Okay. Then it will tell you what level of training they've got up to. And there's three categories generally. There's general practice, specialist, and then it's like they are licensed to practice, but they're not on either of those registers. Okay. But they're still licensed to practice. And then some of them will have further information about whether or not they've been suspended for a few times, or whether
Wow.
they've, so that all of that information is
Is
visible.
available, yeah.
It is available. So that's the first thing you should do.
Mm.
Okay, is check for nurses. There's the nursing. The nurses have a PIN number, and you can search for them on the Nursing and Midwifery Council website as well. So, and dentists are similar. dentists will have the General Dental Council, and they'll have a number, and you can search their status. So that's the bare minimum I think people should be doing, is checking that if they value their health, their skin health, and they want to see someone who's medical and is experienced at treating patients, then that's the first thing. Then skill set in terms of what they do in aesthetics, because that's a relatively unregulated area of medicine. There is no Royal College of Aesthetic Medicine. There's a British College of Aesthetic Medicine, which incorporates nurses, doctors, dentists and surgeons and dermatologists to join it. And that body is pushing for regulation, but government seems to want to include all stakeholders who are involved in aesthetics right now, and that includes, unfortunately, non-clinicians.
Yeah, so it's hot. I mean, and this is where the issue lies. But I mean, that's interesting. So that would be your starting point, as we say. Then I guess you go online, but as we've explained, you can't always be led by a clinic that has 5 stars, because as we have said, life isn't necessarily like that. So you do your research online, and then where do you go from there?
Um, if you haven't got a personal recommendation from a friend or a colleague, then I would really, you've got to do some groundwork. You've got to contact the clinics of interest. Now, there's a lot to be said about gut feeling, okay? And I think that's a really, really important indicator. So, yes, you can have a fancy clinic, you can have a fancy receptionist, you can have a fancy customer service, and those all should be there because they help towards your gut feeling. Am I going to feel safe there? And then you can have all of those customer experience positives, and then you go in and you meet the clinician, and they do not meet your expectations.
Mm.
Okay. Maybe you didn't feel listened to. Maybe they were dismissive. Maybe they just told you what was wrong with you and not what was right with you. Maybe they didn't sound medical.
Yeah.
Maybe they were unrealistic. Maybe they were upselling you, you know. But and if you feel in any way that that clinician isn't right for you, your gut is telling you this is not what I expected. But the clinic's lovely and the staff are lovely,
And you had a
but they're
lovely cup
not
of
treating
tea.
you. They're not treating you.
Mm.
So you can ask, what you can do in those scenarios is go back to reception. Is there another clinician? Is there another doctor? Is there another nurse here who I can see? And you can see them and then make up your mind. So don't, just because you've made the effort, groundwork to go there, doesn't mean you have to do that.
No.
You must
And should you
trust your gut.
always be having a consultation first? Because back in the day when it was even more the Wild West, you rocked up, you said what you wanted, and you had your treatment and you left. Now I feel like it's very much more sort of patient, and sort of, expert, and you have a consultation. Should that be standard?
Well, it should be standard. It's not. It's still very much what you described there for a lot of
Yeah.
places. So look, there's various different models. First of all, one of the reasons there needs to be a consultation because it's a medical assessment, okay? And then if we're going to treat you, let us say with Botox, for example, that is a prescription drug. So one has to examine the patient face to face, discuss the pros and cons and likely outcomes, and then only then prescribe the drug and administer. The prescription is not visibly given to the patients, it's written in the notes and then dispensed from the practice itself and
Yeah,
as
and
the
just see,
patient. So
lots of
that's a
people don't
drug.
know that. When I tell some people that, they can't believe it.
Yeah. And the reason, and a prescription is a huge, prescribing a drug, the responsibility is solely on the prescriber. Okay, so if I prescribe you, Amber, Botox, for example, and you have an adverse reaction, that comes back to me. I am the first person that has to take responsibility on that. So I have to be comfortable that it's right for you. Now, whereas if there are remote prescribers who've never seen patients, they prescribe for unscrupulous injectors. I'm just going to put them into that category. And if there's something go wrong, It's not their problem. They've never seen it. But that's actually against the law. The GMC has said there's no more remote prescribing for Botox and aesthetic work, and that happened probably about 10 years ago. It's
Yeah,
still going on though.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's still going on as well, yeah, and I think lots of people just don't understand that process. Okay, yeah. So consultation, very important, and I would certainly say to anyone who's thinking about having any procedure that you have the consultation first. And as you say, a lot of it is on gut, right? You know, whether how that rapport is. If you feel like you're being sold, I mean, you know, there is an element of selling in some clinics. They may have just suddenly invested a lot of money in one particular laser, and that's the laser they're going to try and push on everyone. But a lot of that
Absolutely.
has been happening.
I mean, listen, these lasers are very, very, very expensive. Well, the good ones are anyway. I mean, you're talking six figures, and to get a return on investment, the correct clinics look at it over several years, not over the next couple of months.
Yeah,
Okay, and it's it's a tool to help them achieve patients' goals and skin health goals. Now, what did you say about just then about consultation? Yes, so the consultation, I've lost myself now. I've forgotten where we were there. What
just
did you
saying that
say?
I absolutely think you have the consultation. Then it's about how you know, with the rapport with the consultant or the person that you're seeing, and then also that feeling of not if you feel like you're being sold to.
Oh, the selling.
Mm,
Doctors are the worst salespeople in the world, okay, generally speaking. And that's because they don't have any sales training in their degree and their medical
no,
training. I mean, they don't sell, you know. Um, it's very different to aesthetics. That's why I think sometimes it's understandable why they can't communicate prices or some come across as upselling sometimes because they're generally NHS doctors are very shy of numbers of money because they've never had to deal with that in their life
yeah,
before. And then they come across to the private sector and they're almost shy of the costs sometimes. Now, clearly, if you've got a doctor who's a great salesperson, then you've got to be mindful, are they upselling me or not? And again,
yeah,
that's trust, you know,
yeah,
that's trust. But no, new tech, new treatments, be mindful of that.
yeah. And if the offer seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes. I mean, if anything's too good to be true, it
Yeah.
probably is. It almost
Yes.
definitely is, in anything in life.
Yeah. I think you have to be honest with yourself at that point. We sometimes we want to believe it, but we all know deep down if something is too good to be true.
So part of my job when I'm consulting is to see whether I can meet this patient's expectations given their concerns.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's not necessarily whether I can. I look at it, what is possible in medicine generally for this patient. Example, just this week I saw a patient who had very, very tired looking eyes, dark circles, very lax skin under her eye, on her lower eyelids. And she came in wanting uh, um, those polynucleotides, okay, the fish sperm injections, because she'd read that they could do amazing things. In my opinion, the best treatment for her would have been a surgical blepharoplasty. Okay, I don't offer that. I don't offer that, but that's the best thing. That's the level of correction I would like for myself if I was her. So what do I do? I say to them, would that be on your horizon? Because not everybody wants to take that risk of
No.
surgery. And if it is, then I said, well, then cut to the chase, just go for it. Okay. And then refer them to a plastic surgeon who specializes in that. And then that's the right thing. I've made no money from consultation, but what I've done the right thing for the person. That's the right thing. Or then they may say, there's lasers, aren't they? I've heard CO2 laser because that's trending at the moment on TikTok.
Mm,
Sure, we can do CO2 laser. Here's a page. This is what you're going to look like for the next 2 weeks. Okay. I'm not sure about that. Okay. But then they kind of like so then I said, right, everything else is going to deliver lesser quality, lesser results, but you have less downtime and may fit in with your daily life.
yeah. So it's
But
about setting realistic goals and telling people
yes,
what.
but this
Yeah.
is what happens, Amber. Many people go, they want they want the treatment without the downtime, but they want the surgical result.
Yes.
That's where the patient has to be really, they have to listen to exactly what the clinic doctor is saying to them. You're not going to get a surgical result without surgery.
Right. Yeah. So it
You're
is
not,
about
and
going in and listening as well. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. And
Look,
I know I can be guilty of not always listening.
you hear many people they hear what they want to hear.
Yes, I think that is human nature,
It
especially yeah,
is. It
yeah.
is.
Okay, so then, yeah, I mean, all those steps are really sensible. Yeah, and very achievable. Everybody can do that level of research and put the time in. I
And
always say to
sometimes
people, I have lots of people who ask me questions, and then lots of it can be around price, to be honest with you, because there can be such a price discrepancy from clinic to clinic. So people will come to me and say, realistically, what I should be paying. And that's a bit like saying, how much should a designer handbag cost? It's almost an unanswerable question. But I do say to people, the moment that it goes wrong, how much would you be willing to pay at that moment to have it put right? So when you're choosing the treatment, that's not the time to be really worrying about penny pinching and saving money, because it's really important to get it right. Because if you don't, then the downside is yeah, you don't want it to go wrong.
yeah, and it is difficult for people because prices do vary considerably
Yes.
between equally skilled people and or a wide range. There are people who are lesser skilled than me that are more expensive than me. Okay, and but and they seem to be doing well. Good luck to them. Okay, I think it goes back to that gut instinct. Um, Experience is what you should be paying for. And what will happen? One good thing to ask the doctor or the nurse is, what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if it's not gone quite? Where am I left? Okay. Now, and that's something to identify. I always ask my patients, if one of these complications went wrong, happened to you, how would you feel in yourself? I know you'd be a bit upset, but would you be, oh my God, you're a rogue, you're a cowboy, how could you do this to me? It's all your fault. Okay. Or would it be, um, I could never live with myself if that happened. Okay. That would be the worst thing ever. Okay. Or would it be, yeah, I understand these things can go wrong in the best of hands, but let's try to get it right. So those are the kind of like 3 points. And you could be the people who say this is the worst thing ever and I could never deal with it. I say to them, don't do it.
No.
I don't want anything to go wrong, but in the best hands, things can still go wrong. And the saying in medicine is, if you've not had a complication, you've not treated enough patients.
Yeah. And let's be clear, if you go to the right person and you go to someone with experience, the complications they're rare. But it's
They
about
are rare
doing the research and putting the work in beforehand. And
and
they
they're
are rare.
managed. And they're
Yes.
managed. I mean,
Yeah.
here's an example that happened a few years ago. Um, there are Facebook groups for everything. Yeah. And there's a Facebook group for injectors. Okay. And these are really basic injectors. But for some reason, a few of us jumped on to see what was going on in this group.
Yeah.
And there was one occasion where an injector wrote on the Facebook regular post, I've just injected someone and their lips gone black in the chair. What do I do? Now, now, the first thing is you don't write a Facebook post not knowing when a response is going to, but they didn't know what to do and they acted in the incorrect way. Now you can imagine that lip filler would probably have cost the patient in basement, next to nothing.
Yeah.
And she's got a serious complication because her
Yes.
practitioner has no idea what to do.
No. I had
But she
didn't
might have
know.
an Instagram feed with 100 lips or 200 lips or 300 lips.
Yes. Wow, that's the other thing. Yeah, choosing someone by Instagram, that's certainly not a route that I would, recommend either.
It's all too common. I mean, it is a very, very valid route for a lot of people
Yeah.
that clinics do go that way, and fair game, but as long as if you're practicing aesthetic medicine, you need to be practicing ethically. If you're practicing beauty, then that's a bit more retail.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then yeah, I mean, I think that's all really good advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good topic for our first,
Yeah.
pod, how to choose a practitioner, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's the question I've been asked the most for the last 25 years. So,
And the
and I
other answer to that is, just come and see me.
yeah.
Wherever
That
in the world you
well,
are, just
yes,
see me.
yeah. There's always a flight available. Absolutely.
So how do we wrap this up? What do we do?
I think what we do is should we settle on what we're going to talk about next? What's our next podcast would be? Because I would quite like to start getting into specific areas of things that are available and kind of, sort of breaking them down so that people understand a bit more about the industry and the treatments out there.
Okay, so there's first of all, um, I did a ramble last week while I was going for a walk, and I rambled about a few things on the stories. One of them was about what what are clinical studies when it comes to um, what's proven? What does it mean there's been a clinical study? What does it take to have a clinical study? And how is that, much weight should we put on them? And how
You
do
know
we
what?
know that they're
That
relevant?
is brilliant because I have been going down a rabbit hole of exactly the same nature around the clinical trials and studies that say people put around creams that you can buy in anywhere from Boots to Space NK to Superdrug. And it's really, really interesting. So let's do that because that is a minefield. And I think it's so easy to just read a statistic and be impressed by it.
Yes, yeah. So we can talk about that next week if you
Yeah,
want.
I would love that. Let's do that.